Welcome back to the fourth video in the series on professional PHP development. In this video I want to share how to respond differently on browser requests based on a URL and URL parameters. Linking a URL to a piece of code is called routing. And instead of setting up a full Symfony or Laravel application that already has routing set up for us, I want to give you an understanding of how routing works and set up a router ourselves. If you haven't seen the previous videos on the PHP autoloader, composer validity or the index.php file, make sure to check those out. After the last video we have an index.php file, which we can access by going to the browser to example.localhost, and we get back hello world. And right now this doesn't change depending on the URL. So if we go to /full, we get back hello world. Whatever we type here, we get back hello world. And most websites typically don't have a single page but multiple, so we want to be able to give back a different web page based on this URL. To understand what's happening here, we need to look at our browser's network tab. And if we refresh the page, there's two requests here. One is for a fav icon, and the other one is for the full file, it's called here. But that's basically the path we entered after our host name. And first our browser looks up what is example.localhost, and it gets back an IP address, in this case for our Docker container, and then it sends this GET request, including the file name and the hosts, to this server with this IP address. And then our server responds with hello world. And all of this we can access in PHP. So if we go back to our code, there's a bunch of super globals in PHP, and the one we're interested in here is server. And it's an array of a bunch of variables. In this case, we're interested in request method. We refresh our page. We see that we get a get request, and we also have a request URI set, which contains the URL. And if we add full equals bar here, we can see that it's also included here. So it also includes a get parameter. Now, instead of doing an echo on the request URI, we can add an if statement and check if our request URI equals full, and do an echo of, let's do full again, and return, and otherwise we do an echo of bar. And if we now go to our page, refresh, we can see that full equals full, and otherwise we get bar. Now, as you probably understand, this isn't very scalable. Adding an if statement for every route is going to result in a lot of code, and there's a more elegant solution. There are a bunch of composer packages available that handle routing. The most popular one is the Symfony router, that's used by both Symfony and Laravel, but it's not as easy to set up without a framework. Instead, let's start off with a leak router package. To add it, we need to do a composer require of leak route. And then instead of this code, we do a router equals new router of leak route. Let's import this. And now to actually parse the incoming request and return a response, we need two more packages. So we need to do another composer require. So we need laminas. That's laminas deactoris. And we need laminas http handle runner. Made a typo there, but it's option 0. And now let's bind everything together. So the first thing we have is a request, and we can create that with the server request factory from globals. And we need to pass it some super globals, the server get post cookie files, and then after the router we get a response from the router, dispatch request, and we emit that using the SAPI emitter for now, where we do emit of the response. And let's import these classes. We now go to our browser, we get a fatal error because we didn't define a route yet for /full. So let's do that. So on our router, we do a map for method get for path/foo, and we add a static function here where we have a response is new response, and then we set the body something. Let's keep foo for now, and we return the response. And we get back foo. Now in this video, the index.php file has grown quite a bit, and it will grow even more for each route we add. Also, our file doesn't do a single thing anymore. It handles both the configuration of the router, but also the definition of the routes and how these routes respond. So first, let's clean up this file a bit. So the response is only used once, so let's paste it in here directly. And our request is also only used here. So let's clean this up a bit. The request goes here. And now the code that remains here is the route mapping and the handling of the request and the response. So let's extract this part. And what I usually do is have a config folder with all the routes. So let's do that in this case as well. So we create a routes file here, and we paste the code we just cut. And then we do a require of this routes file. So it's in config/routes.php. This use statement is not relevant anymore, and we need to add it here. And let's also add a declare strict type again here. So missing here. And now our editor doesn't understand this anymore, that the router is defined in this file. So for now, we'll mark this as router. If we go to our page, this still works. The last thing I want to do in this video is clean up the routes file, because right now there's a bunch of mappings, but then it's also returning responses. And basically these are two different things, so we should split this up. And usually this is done in a controller folder. I'll put it in HTTP, and I'll create a full controller for now. And I didn't touch on this yet, but there's a bunch of magic methods in PHP. One of them is invoke, and we'll go into more detail on this later. But for now, we'll paste our code from here into there. And now we're not in the global namespace anymore. We need a leading slash. Let's also add the parentheses, add an import. And then instead of this static function, we do a full controller class string, which the router can handle. Refresh our page, this still works. So now the code for the mapping is separated from the actual controller and the logic in. With that, I want to end this video. Let me know what you think and what you want me to share about next, and subscribe if you haven't. I hope to see you in the next video.